Today we'll be feeling the pinch of Trapjaw. Today we're going to be playing with Trapjaw. Now, Trapjaw is everyone's favorite. He is the most fun toy from the Masters of the Universe. And he goes way back, almost to the very beginning. A terrifying cyborg, half soldier, half mechanical nightmare. Now, the reason why he is everyone's favorite and so much fun is because he came with so much to play with. He had this mechanical arm that you could swap out different weapons for. He had the sort of machine gun or laser rifle, and he had a pinching, clamping clamper that kind of went along with his like trap jaw clamping motif. And then he even had like a fun Captain Hook that he could put in. And then you could also put his appendages on his belt. So he was not only ready for action, but he was also very fashionable. Now, because Triclops has been around since nearly the very beginning, he actually has different versions of him. In the early mini comics, he was actually depicted in this sort of like greenish hue. And later, Mattel released the mini comic version of it so that we could have him to play with. But most of us just remember and grew up with the blue Trapjaw. Now, Trapjaw's blue skin was actually not just a design element. It actually became lore later, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But first, let's just mention the fact that in the 80s Filmation version of Trapjaw, he was kind of just an oaf. The usual henchman persona, bumbling, making mistakes, not really getting a lot of respect from Skeletor. But in the 2000s era, we got a lot more backstory on Cronus. So in the comic of the Icons of Evil comics, we really get a backstory fleshed out where the blue skin is actually because he is a Gar, it's a race. So there's people on Eternia that have blue skin, including Skeletor. So they're actually kind of like from the same race, and they go way back. They were friends, I guess you could call it like that, but allies. I mean, Cronus worked for Skeletor. And in that narrative, there was a moment where he double-crossed Skeletor. They were having a fight. It wasn't working out so well. And so they went in, and Skeletor messed him up. So Cronus used to look more human with just his blue skin. But after the terrible fight that he had with Skeletor, he lost an arm, and he lost his face skin, and he got the green face and the mechanical arm, and Skeletor really messed him up.
I must break you.
And then psychologically tortured him because not only did he mess him up and transform him, but then he became sort of indentured to him forever. And then Cronus became Trapjaw and just was sort of vowed to serve Skeletor forever from that moment on. Very twisted stuff. Now, Mattel paid homage to that story when they re-released The Rise of Evil, and they had the Keldor and Cronus 2-pack, and it was very exciting because it was the first time we were getting Keldor and Cronus, and the imagery that they showed in the artwork, it showed them together in their sort of younger days, battling the good guys, battling Pallas Eternia. And my imagination goes wild. I mean, it insinuates with the evil, with Hordak and the Horde in the artwork, that Cronus was there from the very beginning, the early siege, possibly the abduction of Adora and the She-Ra narrative. Who knows? And in the upcoming movie, where there's lots of hints at the siege and the destruction of the castle at the hands of Skeletor, we can only imagine that Trapjaw was there, possibly Cronus was there. Now, I did want to mention that the Rise of Evil 2-pack was kind of a collector's nightmare when it first came out. When Mattel first released it, it was a Target exclusive, and it was very hard to find and very hard to come by, and it was showing up on eBay for ridiculous prices. And then eventually it did show up at Target. But then not only did it show up at Target, but it showed up at Target a million times. And every time I go back to Target, the shelves would just be filled with them. And eventually they went on clearance, and it was just kind of a nightmare. And I believe, to add insult to injury, is that in my area, there was hundreds of them on the shelves, but there were people in other parts of the country and the world that were collecting it that didn't have any of them. So moving forward with the new toy line, especially for the movie, hopefully things will be run a little bit smoother. So Trapjaw is featured prominently in the second trailer for Masters of the Universe, and I heard someone on social media say that he's like the Boba Fett of Masters of the Universe, and he absolutely is. He is so badass, everyone loves him, and he seems to be pretty key in the narrative. It almost seems in the trailer that he is sort of the catalyst or the straw that breaks the back, or the reason why Adam finally lifts the sword and gets the power. So I can't wait to see Trapjaw and all of his horrible glory on the big screen this summer when the new movie comes out. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed playing with Trapjaw.
Subscribe!